One of the assumed highlights ahead of leaving for my epic trip to India was the over 2 weeks I had planned to spend at Sadhana Forest in Tamil Nadu. It is located in an intentional community based around the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother in a place called Auroville. The email package sent to me ahead of time listed a number of processes and, for lack of a better term, rules. I was on board, though, and ready to experience an intentional vegan environmentalist community that were laser focused on a project to repair the damage done by centuries of colonization and interference, restoring the forest that once was an integral part of this very land. To do so without violence and with a nod to collaborative community was giving me the big vibes in anticipation of seva, selfless service, working hard on the land, doing meal prep, providing animal care, all these things I actually was already experienced in, so right on. With the promise of usually 4 hours of this contribution of labor per day, all before lunch, and another 2 to 3 extra shifts weekly, totaling 6 hours, and only 4 or 5 days per week, I knew that I could be a helpful person there. I had an unexpected personal connection there as well. A good friend's brother lives at the forest, and I would have a nifty way to get more out of the experience. He and his partner have had 2 beautiful children there, enjoy a quaint forest hut living space, and were truly gracious people who had found a path to living there that was filled with abundance and freedom in the most satisfyingly unconventional senses of those words. You'll see. Spoiler alert, while it was a very unique and interesting place, there were a couple of puzzling happenings. Like any carefully planned and intentional communities, some things that may have missed the mark in ways were present. Some of these I read about ahead of time and planned to disregard as just internet grumbling, but some did resonate just a little bit to the degree that I went in planning to do the full 16 days I had allotted, but by starting with a 4-day stay. Since I am over 40, this is the minimum stay that they allow you to select, and I figured if I made it through that and felt good, I'd hang out as long as possible. So let's jump ahead. We arrive, we begin checking at the main hut that you will see shortly, and I mentioned to the senior volunteer there that we are planning a couple of weeks, but I was going to start by selecting the accommodation for folks over 40 and just stay the 4 days. To volunteer there, one must prepay their entire stay's food contribution up front at 600 rupees per person per day, about $10 Canadian per person per day. If you leave for any reason, you're actually agreeing that it will not be returned and it'll be considered a donation to the forest. Given my paranoia about some joint damage in my foot, stomach issues that I've experienced on the trip, and so on, I wanted to just try and get a stint out and then go full bore once I knew I could do it. This, however, was immediately denied because my partner I was checking in with was less than 40 by 3.5 years. I calmly tried to reason that an accommodation is given to those who need it and not to be used as a penalty, but it didn't seem to be of any use. It was repeatedly and honestly, just inflexibly stated that I had no choice but to stay and prepay the 10-day minimum for both of us for someone younger. I really felt that this was going to be a sticking point, but I eventually acquiesced, thinking to myself that this could be addressed with someone later, or just be part of cutting my losses if things really went that poorly. And while I did later receive some clarity and understanding on this, the very first impression I got from the person handling the checking in part was one of sort of chilly, uncaring rigidity. After grumbling about it a bit, I resolved to just get over it and try to move forward. It is a successful program known the world over, and I can be a bit uptight when things feel unjust myself, even when those things are small. So we set up our private hut, met a couple of people, and immediately headed for bed as the community arises at 5:30 a.m. to get started. So here we go. I get motivated to join this community and help how I can, share the intention and the truth of others and how they experience it, and come to realize all the beautiful moments and curious contrasts that is Sadhana Forest, at least the one I visited at that time. Pardon the long intro, but I needed to add all this context, and it'll make sense as we go, I promise. So now let's go day by day and see what life was like for myself and others, and put any initial complaints behind us as we see Sadhana Forest through their own innovations and enjoy the highlights of a tour given so succinctly and compassionately by the awesome Victoria. Let's get our wake-up call on and start the seva now.
The wake-up call is someone walking around with bells, singing a lovely song.
Sadhana Forest provides the approved toiletries, and that includes the communal tooth powder. So I brushed my teeth, went with the flow of the morning circle stretch and group hugging, and got to work on the seva that was assigned, breaking up mounds and flattening some land ahead of campers attending a festival there. It was also a time to share about the channel and my vegan origin story with fellow volunteers Ashcon and Jordan. And I was excited to see what was for breakfast.
Yeah, sort of. With a little bit of it's called Vegan Everywhere, so there's a little bit of vegan stuff to it, but sort of like classic travel mixed with vegan interviews when I meet some Indian vegans.
He's a true vegan, huh? Like true. I couldn't believe it.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I think he's referring, I've never had meat in my life, and I've been vegan 25 years, so.
Blew my mind, like I thought he was joking at first.
No.
That's crazy.
You're from Canada? Are you sure?
Yeah.
You're fucking with me?
Your mom was vegetarian?
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty cool.
Yeah, she's been vegan 1 hour less than me because I phoned her and was after a fur protest and was like, Mom, guess what they told me? She's like, oh no, I'm vegan too.
That's amazing.
Breakfast is fruit and porridge. Looks pretty nice.
During this breakfast, I would receive what seemed to be a public scolding for sitting on a little 5-inch high ledge at the edge of the circle instead of directly on the floor by a senior volunteer who said this was giving my back to others, which is something we don't do here at Sadhana. I responded that I get numb and stiff and that I was just sitting like some others were previously in the circle and I meant no ill will. I had no idea there was any notion of me turning my back on others, but I was awfully close to where the most senior members and the project manager all sort of sat together, so perhaps this played some part in it. This person spoke to me again after the meal and said they could tell I was struggling in some way, but they just wanted to help me understand how they do it there. Their tone was different than the first public time and sounded friendly now, but forced. Hey, let's take a quick peek around between tasks.
This is the tech hub. This is where there's power available to charge your stuff. And up on the left here is the kitchen area. That's what the kitchen looks like. Lots of trails and wooded area all around. Quite nice.
A wildlife alert.
So far we've seen a brown cobra, a big one. He was eager to avoid folks, so that was really cool. Just now I saw a boar, and there's all these beautiful puppers everywhere that hang out. This is how they handle the compost. Dogs get cooked food, cows get raw fruit bread, idli dosa, pineapple skin. Compost is onion, garlic, citrus, chili, pineapple top and bottom, and rotten and moldy food. There's an oven here, and these are kind of the dorm style huts as well. We have a private hut because we are a couple, so that's good to know. If they have that available and you're a couple, then you can stay in more of a private hut. Sleeping under mosquito netting. Real nice. So far, lots of nice community. Started off this morning with a group stretch. 2 hours of quite hard labor. All of this here that you see grown was not here at all 20 years ago. Just flattened, topsoil completely destroyed. So the work of the foundation is to restore that area. Basically, this is just the front area where you come in, you walk in through here. There's all sorts of places dug out. As you can see, these are kind of dug out pits. That's so that the water stays where it should. That's why a lot of stuff is dug out. It was all flat and completely topsoil deficient when they got here, so all the water would run out, and it was tough to grow. Beautiful work being done here in Sadhana Forest, completely vegan, no oil, no sugar, all whole foods, food included with your 600 rupees a day, and you volunteer for about 4 hours a day, and basically taking on their other missions. The main hut is the gathering place where people eat and hang out and have workshops. When you come in, you're greeted here. You can read a bit about the mission here. Here it is. So this just kind of details everything that happens. They've got a few projects. They have one in Haiti. They have one in Kenya, one in Namibia, and they also take on projects in Madurai and Varun Nagar, feeding folks, teaching them farming techniques and how to maximize their properties to develop economically. that's a little rundown. More to show you as we go. This is a peafowl, a male, so therefore a peacock. Can you see? Perfectly camouflaged. Beautiful peacock. Are you curious on how to make the pee-pee or take a dumpski here at Sadhana Forest? Here's how. First of all, close the door behind you. Next, decide which sort of bathroom you'd like to make. That's for pee. You put some water in that cup. You pee. You take the water from that cup and you dump it down there. You got some poop. You take the lid off of this thing. You poop in the hole. You cover it with sawdust from this bin. And if you have some pee while you poop, you catch it in that pan and you put it in the pee hole. There's instructions in case you forget. Pee, poo, pee and poo, sawdust, water. And then you come out here like a good and sanitary person. And you come over here and you wash your hands. Here's how you wash your hands. Put some water in the cup. Put some soap on your hands. Put the water in this cup. And use this stream to wash your hands with reckless abandon. Look at me washing my hands. They're already clean, but I'm going to rinse them a little more because I'm a rebel. So here is the main hut about to fill with visitors who eat here. Helped do some prep for that food earlier.
Victoria now will lead an excellent tour that I promise it is worth it to watch. She speaks eloquently about climate, veganism, compassion, and so much more.
It's going to be in two parts. We're going to have a shorter part here in the main hut, where I'll be sharing a little bit about the history of Sadhana Forest, the background, the values that we practice, and a bit about the other projects in other parts of the world. We're going to get to go out onto the land and see everything in action. Sadhana Forest, in a nutshell, is an indigenous reforestation project that is basically 70 acres of land, and it was founded in December 2003 by Yorit and Aviram Rosen. And Aviram was a CEO of a company, Yorit was an architect, and they were happy enough, but felt like there was something missing in their lives. And they decided that they wanted to come to India to explore a deeper way of living life, something more meaningful. They came to Oroville and really connected with the teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and asked for permission to be stewards of this land. So we don't own this land, Sadhana Forest doesn't own it, it belongs to Oroville, and we take care of this land. And they thought that on this land they wanted to practice their sadhana, so a spiritual path that we're on. Sadhana literally means an arrow, so it's the idea that you have one focus, which is your spiritual practice, and everything else, you're not getting distracted by other things. You are on one straight path. Their mission on this land was reforestation. The entire east coast of India had what's called the tropical dry evergreen forest. About a few hundred, 200 or 300 years ago, something very dramatic happened to reduce this forest to 0.01% of its former state. When the British came, they cut down this forest, so we only were left with 0.01%, but that's still enough for us to be able to tell what the original forest could have been like and identify some species. So the sacred groves and temples and holy places, they left those places intact, and that's how we know we are able to identify the original species that made up this original ecosystem of the tropical dry evergreen forest. So there's 166 species that we get delivered from Oroville directly, that are grown in Oroville orchards and gardens, and we get them as saplings and then we plant them here. So it's a way of life that we practice here. It's a community. It's much more than just a reforestation project. So what are some of the values that we practice here? This human unity, or unity in general. If you look at society, how we've structured it, we are segregated. We have children go to one place, old people go to another place, everyone else goes to work in their separate places, and we're all isolated from each other. But we don't turn people away because of their age, because of their abilities, because of their sexual preferences, the way that they practice their life, their religion. Everyone is welcome here. And so I think that gives us a great deal of diversity. We offer an option of naturopathic, homeopathic, and of course allopathic. And we respect the sovereignty of each individual. We encourage people to choose English as the language while they're in this space, so that other people can feel like they're welcome to join a conversation. And it's a good experience, to practice English for people whose first language is English. We've had, four children born in Sadhana Forest on the land itself. The second value that we practice here that I'd like to highlight is our substance-free lifestyle. So the reason for this is twofold. One, if we are seeking to raise human consciousness, then it benefits us to be as lucid, as clear, as conscious as possible. So here we don't consume any alcohol, smoke any tobacco, take any mind-altering drugs. We just want to be conscious and aware at all times. And the second reason is for safety. There are children and families present here, and we want everyone to feel safe at all times. The third value that we practice is collaboration, also known as non-competition. And so, why do we move away from competition here? It's not necessarily because it's a bad thing in itself. It's just that it's pervasive in our culture. It's everywhere. From schools to the workplace, we're always comparing ourselves to other people, and we have this feeling of scarcity that comes from that if only I could be a little bit better than the person next to me. So that's another opportunity that we create here to just try something different. What would it feel like to live in a space where there's collaboration instead of competition? So we don't play chess, there's no football, there's no competitive game. And the last value that I'd like to talk about inside here is about gift economy. So we practice gift economy as one of our core values, and things that we offer here that are completely free include the free store. We have a free store, so if that volunteer has something that they don't need, they can just leave it there, and anyone is welcome to go there at any time and pick something up. It's a fun way to go shopping and not spend any money. We encourage all volunteers here to offer workshops in whatever they're interested in. The accommodation here is completely free because it doesn't cost us any money, so we're happy to stay in the huts, so why would we charge for it? It's completely free. We have all of our meals offered completely free of charge. These are different ways that we practice gift economy, this idea of feeling abundance within us. And if we have our needs met and we have more still, we can share it. We can share that joy and share the resources and the abundance with others. If I want to wash my hands, just pour it into one of these cups, and then I can easily wash my hand. And this soap contains castor oil, coconut oil, lye, orange essential oil, and cinnamon essential oil. Welcome to the kitchen. These volunteers here are cooking the dinner that we'll be enjoying tonight. So if you want to give them a wave or a round of applause. So in our kitchens, we prepare only vegan food. And vegan means food that is devoid of any dairy or meat. It also includes honey. And so our food is free of those things. We eat plant-based. And reasons for that link strongly to our reforestation values, because actually cutting down trees in order to farm and to grow animals for food is the leading cause of deforestation in the world. It would be very ironic and a little bit unconscious for us to be reforesting with our hands and deforesting with our mouths. So that's one reason why we're plant-based. And actually 2/3 of the food that's grown in the world is grown to feed animals. And yet we still have a lot of hunger in the world. So by doing that, it's also links to our value of compassion. We are being compassionate and helping more people receive food, trying to consume less. cutting out that middleman of the animal in our consumption. And I think for so many of us, there's just that disconnect, you know, between our hearts and our actions. No person would say that, you know, yes, I want animals to suffer, and yet that link between what we believe in our hearts and what everyone feels, which is compassion for animals, and making that connection to our mouths and our hands and what we're doing, what we're eating, what we're buying, there's that disconnect. So it's just about helping to make that connection. And now we're gonna go see what we do after we eat, which will be washing our dishes at the dishwashing station and the compost. So if you'll follow me that way. Over there, we have our compost. So tonight, when you bring your plate, you might have some scraps of food that you didn't consume, and that's perfectly fine because we have lots of uses for it. Any cooked food will go to the dog post, so that's the one to my right. And any raw food, except for onion and garlic, will go into the cow post, we call it, because it goes to feed our cows. The dogs will happily eat this, and it can enter, you know, one more body before making its way directly to the earth and going back into the composting process very easily. And then lastly, on the far left, we have compost. That's just general compost. So whatever didn't belong in these two. And there's a list, you know, over there in case you get lost or forget about where to put your food. But the idea is that we want to make use of every little bit. You know, in nature, there's no such thing as waste, right? Everything is perfectly, elegantly designed. So we're just taking that model and we're trying to incorporate it into the design of our life. Kinnett, scrub, and ash. In India, this was common, and it's been kind of replaced over the last few decades by commercial soaps and detergents and things. But this was the way that things were washed. And actually, ash is known as the oldest soap in the world. It's rich in phosphorus, it's rich in nitrogen, and so we can wash our plate with it. You scrub your plate on both sides using the coconut scrub from the coconuts that we've used in our cooking. Then you'll dunk your plate once, 2 more times for luck, and then you put it into this basin, which we fill with a cup of vinegar, and the rest is water.
Many long-term volunteers were describing the mud pit as an even better alternative than showering or bathing. Well, all right then.
This is where we talk about our planting process, the actual planting, what we've been kind of leading up to this whole time. So it takes 10 hours of human labor to plant 1 tree at Sadhana Forest. We start by digging a half-moon trench. We have this mound that we dig, and we build that around this PVC pipe. And I always forget to mention it, so I'll mention it now, that we take this out at the end of planting. Inside, we want to create a lunchbox for this tree that's going to be alone here in this harsh soil. You can see the difference between this soil and the one that was inside the compound, right? This soil, much less friendly for growing trees. And so we want to pack within this sapling the maximum chance for it to survive. So by using a sapling instead of a seed, it already helps maximize the chance of survival. We also put compost that we make here at Sadhana Forest. And if you use our toilets, you can also help us to make that compost. So you can please donate over there anytime you feel like it. And we could be planting with you next year. We also put in charcoal, which has been soaked in urine. So you can donate for the urine as well. We have buckets with charcoal in it during planting season in the toilets, so people can use that instead of the normal kind of pee hole. And so the charcoal absorbs all of the minerals from the phosphorus and the nitrogen from the urine, and then we plant with that. We put that in there so that the roots can absorb those minerals as well. But we're introducing this sapling to the bacteria and the life around it. So we add topsoil as well. And then we place the wick irrigation bottle. The wick irrigation bottle is a key part of our planting. You may have seen these bottles along the path. So it's a 2-liter bottle. We make a hole in it, and then we put some plastic tubing with cotton or some other kind of natural biodegradable rope that we tie a knot here at the top so that we place it through, and then we just seal it with M-Seal. And so this creates a vacuum inside this bottle. It's called wick irrigation. So this is the wick, and so this we kind of make sure very carefully to place the threads of the rope along where the roots are of the tree. so that it can directly access the water that slowly percolates because of the pressure created. So at the end of the planting process, and when we go to water our plants, we open the lid, we pour in the water till it's full, and then we close it tightly, and then we open it slightly, so that we have about 150 ml of water per day. And so one bottle like this can nourish a plant for 2 weeks.
Next, we take a jaunt toward the gentle giants happily living a life of sanctuary and freedom at Sadhana Forest.
Welcome to our Goshala. It is a shelter for cows, rescued cows. These are dairy cows mostly, who are spent, who cannot produce any more milk, and the farmers, instead of sending them to the slaughterhouse, wanted them to come here to live out the rest of their lives. And we also have 2 male cows. So this is Hari and this is Vishnu. They've actually both chosen to be here close to us today. And they were also rescued. They were kind of in not a good condition on the streets. And then we brought them here to give them a good home. And they both love attention and pets. So a question that we often get, is, okay, but you're vegan, so why do you have cows? The first thought is, okay, when we use their dung, you must use their urine in your planting. Actually, we make great dung and we make great urine, so we don't need to ask any from our animal friends, actually. And it's the same question, why do we have humans? Well, for companionship, we have companions, and so these are our animal companions. We enjoy their presence and we love giving to them. As a species, as the human species on the planet, we get to decide what lives and dies on this planet. This is an incredible privilege. If you're human or useful to humans, you get to live, and otherwise you're not given so much importance. And these animals actually, a lot of them exist just to be used, and that's their life. If you are a cow, does anyone know how long a cow is pregnant for? How long?
Not really, I'm not very
9 months. So a mother cow is pregnant for 9 months. She gestates, she grows her baby, and then gives birth to that baby. And then if it's a male cow, it's seen as an unfortunate byproduct of this whole process. It's taken away to be slaughtered straight away. If it's a female cow, she's going to have the same fate as her mother, which is to be forcibly impregnated by the factory farming industry as many times as she will bear children, usually about 4 or 5 times in her life. And then, thinking of the cow as an intelligent mammal like ourselves, and the kind of emotional bond that is formed when we are pregnant. Anyone here who's a mother knows what a big thing that is. And then to give birth, and then to have your baby taken away from you, and then, have that milk be used to feed humans when we ourselves have plenty of food to eat. It's a system that if you think about it, doesn't make so much sense, and it's not coming from the heart space. And then also, the volunteers that get to spend time here, or even just you guys who are spending time connecting with them for a few minutes, get to see that these cows are very sentient and emotionally intelligent beings. They have rich, complex social lives. Anyone who spends time with these cows knows that they are social creatures. They have a hierarchy. There's a pecking order happening in there. And once you get to know it, you know that which cow defers to the other cow. And so seeing that and connecting to them after that, eating them is just, for me, was out of the question, spending time in the Goshala. And I believe that one day animals won't have to suffer for us. And I believe that human consciousness is rising on the planet. And with every decade that passes, we are moving more towards consciousness of our impact on others and having more empathy. And I hope that, in a few decades maybe, or in 150 years from now, people will look back and say, do you know that in history they ate animals? They grew them just to use them and then dispose of them. So I have that optimism. It's getting easier and easier to be vegan these days. And for me personally, I see it as an act of integrity where I'm aligning my actions to where I know that my heart is. And it's a gift to myself. I don't see that I'm depriving myself of the tasty foods. I see it as a gift to myself that what goes into my body is only pure and free of animal suffering. There's no suffering going into my body. And on a chemical level, you can see that the suffering that, you know, the animal feels before it's slaughtered, the fear, the cortisol that goes into those cells that we are consuming, it feels like beneficial for me as well. It's compassionate for myself as well as for the animals.
Boom. Mic drop.
But just so you know, ethical veganism is a thing. And these are people who choose not to consume any animal products in other areas of their lives. For example, in leather, they choose not to have any fur or, leather bags and shoes. They choose not to go to zoos and aquariums out of an ethical choice. So it's not for me to tell you where you feel right, but just to listen to your heart and to wake up to the message that your heart is telling you.
So this last spot here is just the children's area. It's a land of wonder where children locally from orphanages and children who are staying here can come and be. And we just heard a talk about unschooling movement, which basically was started by capitalist industrialists who designed these places for children to go during the day while their parents were working so they could be pre-trained to become workers themselves. I know a lot of unschoolers at home and see the amazing difference in those children. So the movement here is to just let children direct their own progress. And we spoke a little bit about that. The crowd was too tight for me to film directly what Victoria was saying, but that's what we were discussing.
So welcome to our, this is a pile of compost. This is made from human manure and our sewage. We don't have any sewage lines. Instead, we have biocompost toilets. So the way that fits into our values at Sadhana Forest, one, it fits into our water conservation values, because when you're using this biocompost toilet, you don't need to flush things down with a lot of water and waste all of that water. It also is aligned with our zero waste value. So waste is actually very valuable here. There is no such thing as waste, only stuff in the wrong place. So when you go to the toilet, you relieve yourself, and then we put some sawdust on top of it. So the sawdust is predominantly carbon-based, and our waste is predominantly nitrogen-based. And when those two combine, then the composting process can take place. And we put that into barrels and keep them sealed for 2 months. And during those 2 months, the temperature within that barrel will go up to about 70 degrees Celsius. So if you put your hand in at that point, you could burn your hand. And all of the harmful pathogens are completely eliminated. So any harmful bacteria, anything, and it makes it safe to use.
That's part one. After the tour, we got to pigging out, get it, on the collective supper, and I felt a great sense of community that evening because of how energized and engrossed everyone visiting felt on Victoria's tour. I didn't even get any footage. Oops. If this was what Sadhana was aiming at, I was going to press ahead.